Kyoya Tatagami is the best character in all of Beyblade Metal Fight, and if you've watched the show, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. With that being said though, I understand that some of you may have not been around when Beyblade was airing from 2008 to 2012, which means you may have missed out on this man's greatness, but that's alright because in today's video I'll be going over Kyoya's entire journey through the Metal Fight series so that I can shed light on the GOAT of Beyblade. When we're first introduced to Kyoya at the beginning of Metal Fusion, he's far from the character and blader he would go on to become, and is honestly no more than your classic anime antagonist that's able to push the protagonist to the brink of defeat before losing via a miraculous comeback. Moreover, he's completely juxtaposed to his future self's ideology and methods, as he seemingly never trained a day in his life before battling Jinga, nor had he developed his lone wolf personality that he goes on to adopt later, seeing as how he's literally a town gang leader who likes beating up on the weak to feel strong. And he all but realizes this after facing Doji, who is able to embarrass Kyoya by taking him out in one shot even after giving him the advantage, which completely crushes his ego. However, none of this is necessarily a bad thing, since due to his loss, Kyoya would have to listen to Doji's demands, which were simply for him to undergo top-of-the-line training and to gain the Fangs of the Heart by climbing Wolf Canyon in order to gain the strength and power necessary to defeat Jinka. Which not only pushes Kyoya to the brink physically and mentally, but spiritually as well, since during his first climb of the canyon, he's forced into a life-or-death situation against a pack of wolves, which forces him to adopt a Sukuna-like mentality of the strong do as they please, while the weak have no choice but to swallow the suffering life gives them. And although this mindset is great for Kyoya in terms of increasing his strength, it comes at the cost of his sanity and causes him to become twisted and bent on destroying everything and everyone in his way, almost like Tsubasa when he was possessed by the dark power. And just like Tsubasa, Kyoya would go on to learn how to control himself and realizes for the first time that despite what he'd like to think, that he's never been alone in any of his battles, as Leon has always been by his side despite him belittling the very concept of friendship. What's more is due to this realization, Kyoya would go on to be way more open to the concept of camaraderie and even help Shinka's group with their invasion of the Dark Nebula organization's base, giving him an almost Vegeta-like role in the series for the remainder of the show, in the sense that he's also the deuteragonist of his own series and won't allow anyone to take down the protagonist other than himself. Unlike Vegeta though, Kyoya would still go on to have some extremely good moments after his losses to Jinka, such as his tear through Battle Bladers and most notably his match with Ryuga, which is easily one of the best battles in the series despite the ending being predetermined, as Kyoya at the end of the day was still able to push the Dragon Emperor to the point of near defeat and literal possession before finally taking out our boy. Which, like a lot of Kyoya's losses, is just pure plot armor in my opinion and doesn't take away from the fact that bro was him even in defeat. Kyoya wouldn't take this loss laying down, however, since in the second season of the show Metal Masters, we see his continued efforts and training to defeat Jinka, which more than pays off, as not only is he able to claim the top spot in Japan's World Selection Tournament, but once he's in said tournament, he absolutely claps Tsubasa in their battle to decide a spot on Team Japan, even after Tsubasa is boosted by the Dark Power, showing us how far Kyoya is ahead of anyone competing to make the World Championships at this time. What's more though is that Kyoya didn't even enter the competition to claim a spot on Team Japan, and instead only entered to show Jinka and the world his overwhelming strength before their battle in the World Championships, which is a crazy fucking flex. Speaking of Jinka and Kyoya's fight in the World Championships though, I really want to shed some light on just how different Kyoya's drive to beat Jinka is, because bro literally traveled to bumfuck nowhere Africa to enter the World Championship selections, stomped the competition, recruited a couple niggas, and even battled tornadoes just to get a chance to battle with Jinka. Like I'm telling y'all, bro really needed to get his get back bad, and for a second he really had me thinking he was finally gonna beat Jinka with his brand new special move, but of fucking course the power of friendship turned this battle into a tie, and in addition to this, Kyoya absolutely throws the team match and doesn't do anything but hold Nile back due to his obsession with Jinka. Which honestly just pisses me off, even though I understand Gang Galaxy had to win for plot's sake. Thankfully though, this isn't the last we see of Kyoya in Metal Masters, as he appears at the end of the season to help save Jinka from getting jumped, and he also goes on to fight his complete antithesis in Damian, which I want to focus on in depth really quickly, as this is easily Kyoya's peak in the series, since despite the fact that he was on the back foot for the beginning of the battle, Kyoya's warrior blader spirit would eventually start to give him the edge, allowing him to press Damian right back, while telling him that true strength can't just be given to someone, and that you have to attain it on your own cause there's no one to save you if you don't. which is literally some Zoro-ass energy and the reason this Kyoya win is so cathartic, as for once all of his hard work and training actually paid off, making up for all of his BS losses beforehand. Again though, thankfully this isn't the last we see of our boy Kyoya, as he really takes on the deuteragonist role once his Leon evolves and he becomes a legendary blader, as he uses the hunt for the other legendary bladers as an excuse to stay close to Jinka for their eventual battle, as well as to sharpen his skills so that he can eventually take down every legendary blader including Jinka. However, upon facing Ryuga for the second time and getting absolutely bodied, he realizes that he was still yet to master his new Leon's power, which we more than see him do against Johannes in the Toryumon tournament, when he goes back to his roots and puts Leon in defense mode in order to pull off his new special move, King Lion Crushing Fang. But just like with Vegeta, whoever the series creators are can't just let Kyoya shine for long, as in the next tournament match he'd be blindsided by Akuma, who he didn't know was a legendary blader at the time. Once again though, Kyoya would not take this shit lying down and would later go on to avenge his loss to Aguma in an actual 1v1 during the Misty Mountain arc. However, during the same arc, Kyoya is irked by Akuma's claims that he isn't the lone wolf he'd like to pretend to be, which causes him to leave the group out of frustration. But this wouldn't last very long, as upon reuniting with Yu and meeting with Tithy, Kyoya realizes himself that he's not as much of a lone wolf as he thought, and understands that if he wants to have his battle with Jinka, that he'd have to deal with the threat of Nemesis first. Which leads him to tapping in for Jinka against Dynamis, who he would defeat and free from the curse of Hades, symbolizing his own heart being freed from the dark desires of his past. After this, though, as sad as it's going to sound, Kyoya's role in the anime going forward is very minimal to say the least, as like I mentioned with King, he's basically relegated to backup for Jinka, who would ultimately go on to defeat Rago in the final battle. However, despite this, there's still some solace for Kyoya at the end of the final battle, as he can now challenge all of the legendary bladers without the threat of Nemesis, and even goes on to defeat all of them before finally facing Jinka again, where their battle at the end of the series is left ambiguous, which is an awesome touch of detail and a great way to give closure to the character of Kyoya.